at a literary princess. If you are new here, welcome. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists. And as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have an installment in my George Eliot project for you. If you have not seen any of the other videos, the George Eliot project began in January of 2023, and it consists of me reading the fiction of George Eliot in publication order. Today we are on our last one. I can't believe we're finally here. This was supposed to end in December of 2023. That didn't happen because the mill on the floss took me like 4 months for no reason. So today I give to you the impressions of Theophrastus such. So I'm gonna give a brief history, a summary, as much as I can give a summary of this, and then my thoughts. So I guess spoiler warning, there will be spoilers. I don't know if this is something you can spoil because it's not a novel. There's no plot. It's very confusing, and I hated it. Hate. Worst thing I've read all year. So I don't know if you don't want to know the details of this because you're like really eager to read it yourself, then don't watch this video. But like also, I don't think it's gonna ruin anything. It'll warn you not to read it. So let's jump in. Impressions of Theophrastus such was published in 1879. It is the last thing that Eliot published. And it came as a surprise to the public. They were not expecting her to publish something new. And when it was first announced, they were really excited. They were like, ooh, new Eliot work. And then they read it. And they were like, what is this? One reviewer felt that it was like stuff that an author would write leading up to the writing of their novel. Like character sketches and whatnot. Yeah, people just weren't impressed by it. Neither was I. So what is this? This is a series of 18 essays written by a fictional character, Theophrastus such, who has some things in common with George Eliot. He talks about his childhood in the second chapter, looking backward, and there's like some similarities there between him and Eliot. And then the rest of most of the rest of these are character sketches that are kind of satirical and making comments upon society and sometimes philosophy, literary scene, scholarly scene. They're not connected, really, other than this guy, Theophrastus such, is the one telling them. So yeah, that's what this is. And like, I don't know how to give a better summary than that because I'm not going into each individual essay and like summarizing it because A, I don't want to, and B, that would be boring. So yeah, that's what this is. Like I said, people weren't really that impressed by it. Some people thought that it showed like brilliance in satire. It's very experimental, which is probably why I don't like it, because I like Virginia Woolf, and that's about it for my experimental stuff. Like, that's it. For my classics, anyway. 21st century books I'm much more forgiving of, but yeah, my classics, I'm like, I don't want experimental. I'm a Victorian. I'm such a Victorian. So, my thoughts. Like I said, I hated it. I gave this 1.5 stars. That is the lowest rated George Eliot book I've read and the lowest rated book that I've just read all year. Where to start with this? First of all, this isn't fiction. I'm sorry, George Eliot. This is not fiction. This is George Eliot's opinions masquerading as fiction, and it's not even a good masquerade. She didn't even do a good job hiding it. Because you know what? Sometimes her opinions come out really heavily in her novels. But they're still fiction. It's still a novel. There's still characters, there's plot, there's things other than her opinions. This is just her opinions. I'm like, why didn't you just write essays, girl? Why did you have to like frame it as this guy? Theophrastus such. Like, this didn't need to be a work of fiction. It's not a work of fiction. Apparently that's a thing with like current scholarship on it, which is not very much, I just want to say. But yeah, scholars are like, well, is it fiction? And some are like wholeheartedly like, yes, it is fiction. I'm like, no, this isn't fiction. It's not. I feel tricked is what I feel. I feel tricked. So, I found these mostly very boring. There were a few that I liked, or that at least held my interest for a little while. The third essay, How We Encourage Research, which focuses on this guy who is kind of excluded from this group of scholars because he disagrees with the theory of one of the main scholars. That one was kind of interesting, but it went on too long. The final essay, which is titled The Modern Hep Hep Hep, is actually very interesting, especially in light of having just read Daniel Deronda. It is talking a lot about anti-Semitism. So, of course, with the Jewish storyline in Daniel Deronda, there is that. So that was kind of interesting. Again, it went on too long. So you might be asking, Elizabeth, why isn't it just 1 star? Why that half star? And that is because of chapter 14, The Too Ready Writer, which is about an author who wants to write historical romance, I think it is, and he's a mess. It's not good. He's like not historically accurate. But in this, Eliot is talking a lot about this idea she has of the too much of literature. Basically, there's too much literature being written and published, which is connected to my dissertation. I'm talking about it specifically with women writers. What's interesting here is it's a male author. But I saw a lot in common with this essay and her earlier essay, Silly Novels by Lady Novelists. And I'm like, okay, I can probably reference this in my dissertation. It might be helpful context. So I gave it a half star for that. And that's why it's a half star and not just 1 star, 1.5. I did also kind of like the next essay, Diseases of Small Authorship, which is about this very egotistical woman writer named Vorticella, I think. They all have really weird names, like Theophrastus such. Okay. So that one was kind of amusing, but again, they all go on too long, and there's no depth to any of the characters. Like, you can have satire while still having character depth. And again, I just feel like this wasn't fiction. This didn't need to be fiction. It didn't need the framework of this guy Theophrastus such writing it all down. It just didn't need to happen. Eliot, you could have just written essays if you really wanted to that bad. Because quite frankly, these are just all Eliot's opinions. So, yeah. So, that is my thoughts on impressions of Theophrastus such. My impression of it was not good. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, I really would not recommend this. I mean, if you are an absolute George Eliot completionist, maybe, but like just do yourself a favor, end with Daniel Deronda, because Daniel Deronda is wonderful. Like literally my favorite Eliot book. And then you go to this. I felt so betrayed, honestly. Like, I knew that this was weird and that I probably wasn't going to like it. But I was not expecting the level of not interesting that this was. Eliot and I have had a very complex relationship over the years. But with this project, I finally was like moving more toward really kind of enjoying her. And like, yeah, there's a few flops in there that aren't that great, or that I didn't enjoy that much, or that just aren't my thing. And then she came out with this. I was like, girl, like, we're not back to square one, but we're close. Like, why would you do this to me? Like, you could have written another novel, or you could have just ended with Daniel Deronda. Why did you write this? Why? So yeah, that's impressions of Theophrastus such. I will stop ranting now. So that was the last book of the George Eliot project. I have now read all of George Eliot's fiction, which seems so weird to say. She also wrote poetry and a ton of essays that are not framed as fiction. I don't like poetry, so I'm not gonna read that. I have read a few of her essays, but I don't really feel the need to like go through and read all of them. That just sounds like a lot of work, and like I might get frustrated and annoyed with her. So I'm perfectly content to just leave it with her fiction. There is going to be a final video wrapping up the George Eliot project that will come out hopefully in June. Or is this coming out in June? I don't even know. I don't know what my schedule is anymore. Anyway, so yes, there will be this final video. I will have my ranking of all of George Eliot's fiction. I think those of you who've been keeping up with this whole project might be a little surprised because time has shifted some things around. There is a book that has gone up slightly in my rating and ranking. So we will talk about all of that in the next video. And I will just kind of talk about how I feel my relationship with George Eliot has changed after doing this project. So let me know down in the comments below. Have you read Impressions of Theophrastus Such? What did you think? Do you agree with me that this didn't need to be fiction? Or are you like, no, Elizabeth, this was definitely fiction? Which, I mean, feel free to be like, give me the case for why this is fiction, because why did this need to be fiction? Yeah, let me know down in the comments below. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.